Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to be motivated by your host, Reverend John Wheeler! Now shut up! You shut up! Sit down! Shut up! Shut up!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my stupid podcast that Meredith helps me with. And once again, as is the only time she ever uses the massage chair in the health and wellness center in the basement, my lovely wife is behind the black curtain getting her giblies rubbed out by a machine. Yep. By like an $8,000 machine that she found for $150 from a guy who I'm pretty sure stole it from a trade show and was panicky about getting rid of it without getting in trouble. And that actually is true. Like, look, it doesn't have any serial numbers on it.
I was going to say, is there a VIN number or serial
number?
No. Is it?
There are not. And he mentioned that weirdly. Like, he brought it up without being asked about it, which is always good. And then was like,
you need a serial number for a goddamn massage chair?
I think we were.
Get parts.
Yeah. We were talking about, like, well, what if we ever need to fuck with it or something? And he's just like, there's no serial numbers on it, but I have a special relationship with blah, blah, blah company. I'm like, do you? What? Like, how is that a thing? He's like, I never use it. And it's like, either he was gifted it as someone who maybe did some kind of consulting work for it, because, you know, I don't know. He seemed like the kind of guy that might have that kind of weird job or something. He lived in a house and was home during the daytime. Like, I mean, I often am too, but, you know... he seemed to, I don't know. The way, like, I can't quite re-articulate all of the little pieces that lead me to believe this, but my thought is that it's the display model from a trade show, and someone wasn't looking, and something, he has it, and he kind of wanted to get rid of it. Because $150, the thing's like MSRP's for $8,000. That would be like, I'll sell it for $2,000, but then someone will notice. Like, it's, you know, a used thing like that could probably go for a lot, but it might ring a few bells, and someone might be like, hey, did you take this thing, but for cheap on Craigslist? You just want it out of the house. It also might be haunted. And we were talking about that, too, because I was saying that, listen, I've made money off of music in a roundabout, weird sort of way through either merchandising or the fact that I got myself sort of, I don't know, well-known enough where other people are like, will you make me a remix or produce this album or make us a music video or whatever? And that's cool. So that's kind of roundabouty, but like, as far as the checks from actually writing a song and putting it out go, yeah, it's never really been that much. So I'm firmly on team, fuck you if you're successful. You can go to hell and die. I do not care. And it would be awesome if there's no such thing as copyright laws. Because then, rather than like this little techno loop that I made for the intro of this show, I could use the music from 1992's hit movie Nothing But Trouble, starring Chevy Chase and Demi Moore. And see, doesn't that make it sound like a hit? It wasn't. It's the weirdest.
Should have been.
It should have been. Nothing that weird has ever gotten a budget that big. I think it actually has that distinction. Like, even Pee-wee's Big Adventure... It was still like as in a secondary example, like Pee-wee's Big Adventure was weird, but I don't think it was as weird as Nothing But Trouble. And I know that's a difficult claim to make, but I don't think it was as disjointed and bizarre. And, you know, like, Pee-wee was a successful, like, weird comic guy that was getting a TV show, and Tim Burton already had some cred, and he directed it or whatever. But I also don't think...
Phil Hartman wrote the thing.
Yeah, but all these people, like, weren't that big yet. Whereas Nothing But Trouble was Dan Aykroyd's baby pre- or post-Ghostbusters. Like, it was like early 90s, like 91 or 2, something like that. Well, we could look, I guess. It was before Pulp Fiction and the birth of my wife. Like, I know... Saying it like that, by the way, is so much creepier than, like, our relationship is creepy enough as it is, but that really helps.
I like it.
Yeah, I know. I hope people can hear you. But, yeah, it was, like, Aykroyd was, like...
91.
Okay, 91. Like, famous beyond belief, and they're just throwing money at him. But he was also one of those creatives that needs a little bit of resistance. Like, his original ideas for Ghostbusters were, like, batshit crazy. And, like, they were like, all right, let's tone it down a little and make it a little bit more grounded. Like he wanted it to be in space. And that Ghostbusters were this interplanetary organization. Like, you know, you can hear him say it. He's like, well, it takes place in outer space, and Ghostbusters is an interplanetary organization that's been around for a long time because space travel really did dredge up the difficulty of the paranatural and what we had to do, you know, whatever. But the thing is there was... one of my favorite parts of Nothing But Trouble is one of my wife's least favorite parts, which is the big fat naked baby men that live outside. Yeah, the Bobo and Little Devil, and the first thing they say to Debbie Moore is like, "We're not allowed in the house," and I love that because they wouldn't be, and it's a little slice of life.
That's not the part I hate. I hate when he makes the butthole mouth and eats the hot dog.
You hate that worse? They're like, God, bravo. If you've never seen Nothing But Trouble, you need to watch that as a companion piece of this podcast. I mean, every episode really, but this one in particular. Like, there is a scene where Dan Aykroyd's in, like, old guy makeup. His nose looks like a weird little, like, sad circumcised penis. And he's just like, and he's all old. And then they serve these nasty gray German bratwursts that have like extra skin like tags hanging like 3-inch long skin tassels on either end. Yeah, and he only puts regular mustard on them.
Casing, bro.
Oh yeah, there's nothing nasty about that if we just accept it as normal. Anyway, like he fucking like he's just sitting there like squirting mustard on it or whatever. And then he's just like, Corfordales, prize winners. And here's how I like them. I suggest you have them the same way. And they just like cut to him eating them. And he's like, you know, like 1,000 years old. And he's just sitting there with his wrinkly butthole mouth, as Alexis put it. Just sitting there like, like eating a wiener like that. Just like biting onto it. And it like inflates the balloon animal end.
My dad used to tell me stories about... Because he lived in an assisted
He lived in Vulcanvania.
He did, and he would just, like, want to throw up every time he'd have to eat. Just, like, these people, like, just trying to eat with, like, you know, dignity still, but clearly they couldn't because they, you know, were too old. But just, like...
Yeah, you lose that after a while. I think it's a little after 60.
Just all in their beards and down their face, and, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that is... I was in a assisted living things. Let's talk about that for a moment. Oh, before we get to that, though, I just wanted to wrap it up. So I was talking about Dan Aykroyd, Nothing But Trouble, because there's like a little theme song for the fat, naked baby men that live outside. And it's like this weird, bizarre little piece of music that's like... boo boo doo boo doo boo doo boop 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 boo boo doo boo doo boo doo. It's very descriptive of their gross, naked fatness. And I was like, man, I wish that could be the theme music for this, but you can't do that. And it's like... I'd probably get overcharged for it. Oh my god! I wish we could connect. We got to figure out a way to like do an on-screen YouTube. I'll bet I could figure it out. But yeah, Bobo and Little Devil from Nothing But Trouble. If you're listening at home, no, if you're watching at home. If you're listening, you're probably like blowing glass or fixing forklifts or whatever. You know, I don't know what Dominic does. I actually I realized a few more of my friends listen to this than I realized, and old school friends I don't see all the time. It's heartwarming, really. But yeah, I just wanted to use the Bobo and Little Devil music, and then I was afraid that Dan Aykroyd's ghost would come for me, and the joke was, I know he's not dead, I just figured that he has a ghost that he can use to get people, or whatever, because he's a weird nutcase that believes in aliens and Crystal Head vodka and stuff.
Yeah.
But, and, you know, fucking God bless him. That almost turned into a little bit of barf. All right. I should also take this thing out of my pocket. No, I'll leave it. There's a lot going on here today. But yeah, assisted living homes. Nothing really brightens the mood like talking about the disgusting, horrifying... I mean, people are gross all on their own. And then you get even people who probably weren't gross. When you get near the end, there is very little dignity to be had. And it's very sad and fucked up. But I just had a story... And it was literally that that whole I hope to be like, oh, I'm getting a little old, and then just get run over really fast and be like, oh, sweet, good, that's not happening. But I had some great grandparents that were around when I was alive, and we were visiting them, and there was God, this story's, but I was just sitting there being a little kid in I don't know, the day room or whatever it is, because
the day room, that's exactly what it's called.
Retirement homes and 60 Days In aren't really that different a lot of the time, which is horrible. Yeah. Maybe that would be the trick. Just like when I start getting too old, just start exposing myself in public so I get arrested and just go to like nice normal jail. And I could just live in there instead. It's like, hey, you can score coke if you like, take your teeth out and blow a dude. Like, that's so much better than just like living in like, yeah, whatever. But
I think they call that, well, at least in the show Orange is the New Black, they call that Florida, where all the old criminals go.
yeah.
They all go together and it's called Florida.
No, I actually, I did read about that once, that the old, like, we are geriatric people as far as prison goes. Like, if we broke the law now and, like, went to jail forever, like, we wouldn't really be in with the 20-year-olds, probably. Like, we have enough weird things wrong with us and, like, shit where they're like, oh, you go and, like...
I'd be with the mentals. It's okay.
Oh, yeah.
I fully understand that.
Well, whatever I finally do to end up in prison, they're being like,
throw me in and
no need to plead insanity, we get it. Like, you're going, we're either inventing an entire new Nuremberg trial just for you, or you're just going into an asylum. You're going into Arkham, basically. Like, you can just live with the Joker. That's fine. He said in his purple suit. So, yeah. But anyway, when I was a little kid, I got to watch a really old lady sit there making retchy barf noises and then blow her nose into this, like, handkerchief and then just sit there licking all of the snot back out of it and just going, ugh.
Oh my
just
fucking God, shut the fuck
Yeah.
up.
No, I was there. Like, you were just hearing about it. It was the most stomach-turning thing. It was probably traumatizing. Like, we were learning more and more that every little thing traumatizes you. And not to say that, like, like, going, like, I don't agree with your, like, weird ideas about identity politics or, like, a hate crime and violence. Like, it's just, like, more, like, I think you're silly and let's move on. Or whatever. Like, yeah. But I will get on board a little when it comes to, like, well, it's not like your parents were, like, putting cigarettes out in your eyes. It's like, yeah, but I watched that and now I'm different. Like, that's a thing. Like, I
feel the same about old folks' homes ever again.
Yeah, I really used to think they were a fun way to while away the time. And I'm like, I can't wait.
Well, here I am getting into the whole, like, death doula, death midwife thing. And that's just
which we haven't brought up.
I have to fucking witness all the time now.
Yeah, we should talk about that because we were going to bring it up on a different podcast, but Meredith is becoming a death doula. And the only thing I know about doulas is that there's ones for birth, I guess. Mm-hmm. And it was a throwaway joke on Archer. Like, I technically got certified as a doula. I could help. I mean, yeah, it wasn't very hard or something. It was some short thing. But then apparently there's doulas for other things, like dying. And I do get it in a relatable way because I'm a fly-by-night but actual certified reverend. That is a real thing. And, I can marry people, but I can also, like, read people their, like, final rites and all that kind of shit. Like, that's never come up. But it is a thing that I can legally do for whatever that's worth or means. And I feel like being a doula is adjacent to that somehow, where it's like...
It is a little bit. You can... A lot of it, I think, it's kind of like hospice and palliative care, except... nothing on the medical end. So you're just
right. Me neither. Like
helping
nothing.
People with their
important.
last rites. I forget what that form is called. It's a very important form. Wow, I'm like studying and I.
Is it like a will? No,
it's not a will. It's
It's a won't. Yeah, you won't anymore. Not once I'm done with you. That's very funny. No, wait, it's
I
like...
should know this because I'm currently, like, just right
yeah, you have to
middle.
fill... Is that so American? You have to fill out your own death certificate? Like, it's like whenever you call the cops and you're like, that guy just shot a guy. It's like, can you ask the guy who shot the person what his social security number is, or otherwise we can't do anything? Like, it's so, like, just like, yeah, okay. Again, we finally finished Dahmer. And boy, do you...
I finished that shit in one night.
No. When we were talking shit about it, we were on like the fourth one or whatever. But like,
the State Fair one.
Or whatever. Like, but like getting to the ones where like the cops just get reinstated, like that, you get more mad about the system and that movie, and I again,
which is why that particular series I think is important, because none of the other movies or anything focus really.
No, they really.
I honestly didn't know a whole lot
don't.
about Dahmer. I was pretty young.
Yeah,
when
we
all
all-
that stuff happened. Basically, all I knew, and I've never really been into true crime stuff either, so all I knew was like, oh, he was a cannibal, and he made cannibal jokes and whatever.
Yeah.
I
My
had no
dad made a
idea
joke
about-
once where he was like, hey, what did Jeffrey Dahmer say to Lorena Bobbitt? You gonna eat that or what? In like the 90s, I was like, my pops is not exactly the guy to make that kind of joke, but he came up with that, and I'm like, that's actually pretty funny.
It is pretty good.
I think he told it he had to give a speech at my grandpa's retirement, which, by the way, that was the funny part, is making that joke in that situation is a me move. And my father and I are similar in perhaps logic, reasoning, a love of science, being very empathetic towards people. But as far as like our sense of humor being berserkly transgressive and only designed to terrify people, that's kind of a me thing more than a him thing. And so him doing that was like, I was like, God, that's a good joke.
That's
like
really- that's-
everyone was upset. Like I was so happy. Everyone but me, I should say. I was like, that's just insane in front of like 100 old, see, my grandpa would have been pretty close to like the exact birth date and generation of Don Draper. So it was like, those guys.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I'm going to start this speech off with a little joke. It's about eating a dick. Oh my God, that's so great. And I don't know, is there like a reverse traumatizing where you remember stuff like that, but because it was funny and not because it was bad? Because most people would be like, you remember that because it was inappropriate. I'm like, yes, but that doesn't mean it wasn't great. Like remembering that lady like retching up her own snot she was eating off. It was probably like the same year too. That was probably like, I have two memories from 1992 or whatever it would have been maybe. Like my grandfather's retirement where my dad made like a Lorena Bobbitt cannibal penis joke. And then I watched a lady like hack and retch up snot and eat it like along with her peas in the day room.
Ugh.
And both of them reminded me that the sweet release of death is so much better than a long drug out.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to fill me in once you complete your death doula classes.
Yeah, and if I can remember what I freaking just studied, like, that's so annoying.
Look, neither of us were exactly like excelling in school type of people, so it's
Mine
understandable.
closed.
Yeah, and Alexis's school is like part of a giant ripoff, which again, I brought up in the podcast before. People were like, they shouldn't forgive student loans. I'm like, like my wife has tens of thousands of dollars owed to this thing that just was like, we're closing our doors, no education for you because rich turds just run this country. And it's like, oh yeah, well, the important thing is if they get a return on investment, and if the people's lives that they ruined, it's like, I don't want to hear any uppity shit from them or whatever. It's why, my mother-in-law was over earlier helping Alexis make a patio. And, I was talking about, they were having lunch and I joined because I was, I'll talk about what I was working on today. But, we got into like mental health and I'm starting to have one terminology for everything that happens now. And I've been calling it union busting 2.0. And, it used to be a thing where it's like you don't talk about mental health, right? Like you're like, my daughter's seeing a psychiatrist. And now it's becoming more like, oh, you do that, like whatever. It's becoming pretty normal. And like
You don't see a psychiatrist? You probably should.
Yeah, or a therapist. And even if there's nothing wrong with you see a therapist, it's just good to like have someone to talk to. Like, and I believe in that. And my therapist is very good. And all three of us in this room, though one of us is hidden, do go to a regular therapist, and it's good to talk to them. It's important, and it's also kind of nice. But I feel like the same societal norm, which it's funny that so many people are now just learning that astroturfing is a term, even though like it's been done for over 100 years or 1,000, yeah, whatever. But like as far as America goes, things that people consider, rude or impolite. it's like, oh, you don't talk about your salary with your other coworkers. It's impolite. Like, well, what asshole in a top hat invented that shit? So you don't start going, the literal Monopoly guy, the worst game in the world that was about, it's like unwinnable and about how shitty the system is, which is why it isn't fun. But the lady who made it made a really good point by inventing it. And, of course, that got lost in the shuffle, too, like everything, because they're like, there's money to be made, but I hope no one learns the lesson from this, because then there will be less money to be made. But, yeah, it's about how everything's bullshit. But, yeah, they're like, don't talk to your coworkers about how much you make. And it's like, well, the reason is because if you do that, you might start going, hey, wait a minute, am I getting fucked over? It's like, I'm getting fucked. Why does Bill make more than I do? I work harder than Bill. And, like, that was my best Gaffigan. But, yeah, they don't want you doing that because then they have a problem on your hands. And if you're like, well, okay, if they literally invented a fake social mores to avoid having to pay everyone better that works at the same place, do you think that they stopped there is my big question lately. So when I was like, don't go to a psychiatrist. Don't talk to anyone about mental health, because then your evangelical patriarchal father will start having to answer to his 9 kids who he's been just horribly abusing or whatever. Or like this giant corporation being like, hey, go to war. Like, yeah, everyone that came back real fucked up. No, they're fine. They drink a lot and they're dealing with it. And like, whatever. And it's like, no, they're not. They're like hitting everybody and this is terrible. Like, I don't think we want to go do this again. Do you see where it starts to all fall apart when we all start going like, hey, we discuss money, mental health, all this shit with each other. We're like, and then they're like, yeah, okay, I'm glad you had your fun. Now do as I say. And we're like, I think it's time to like maybe start cutting you into little pieces instead. Like that's where that starts, and they don't want that to happen. So, I love that everyone has become a little bit more okay with talking about things, not just because it's like, oh, good, people are gonna feel better. It's like, oh, yeah, that's good. But the fact that I think we were meant to not do that, so it's flying in the face of the evil plans of everyone who would prefer to keep their boot on our face. The same that convince everyone that giving a little kiss is the right move, rather than going, you can let up a little, I'll kiss your boot more, and then you like stick a switchblade in their taint. Like that's the right move, and whatever. But it was good to air that out today, I think. Also, speaking of rules that don't make any sense, that are draconian and just for, I don't know, people to be able to control people or whatever like that, and I gotta finish this real quick.
Is there anything left of that, or is this paper?
No, there's this right here. Okay. This is my last one of these, and also, I don't know how easy this will be to... No, there's a place in Brooklyn Park called Royal Tobacco that I think has these, but I've been doing a lot of work for the company that owns Hideaway lately, and I will talk about that too, because it's been really, like, fun, and, I, and perhaps even they, we just need to have the conversation, would, like the idea of, like, if I had a permanent job, maybe they're doing media stuff for them. Because what I've been doing so far has been fun, and everyone's liked what I've done. But I was at an event for them, and I was talking to some of the people that work a little bit more on the product-facing side of things, and I was like, are you guys going to have any more of these? And they were like, no, they're not. Like, a lot of people think they're gross. And there's ones that are which I have on the table here. They're different CBD cigarettes, but they're called Vance, and they're a little bit more like a pre-roll. But the thing that sucks is they don't burn like a cigarette. I use these because I'm getting a little bit of CBD. There's no nicotine or tobacco in it or whatever. It's like I enjoy a little tobacco in a pipe sometimes, but I don't smoke cigarettes, and certainly not in the house, like other lowlifes who have podcasts. But like, I think that. The problem is you have to keep relighting the other ones. They're more beneficial, but these have more weird things in them to keep them burning. But they're like Mad Men. They're like a stage cigarette. Like they sit there and burn like a fucking Camel Light 100 or whatever, a Marlboro or some shit, which you would never want to light in your house. But yeah, I got to ask them, and they're like, no, nobody really likes them, and I get it. Like, my use for them is weird. Like, I'm one of the only people who are like, I need, like, a cinematic stage cigarette to use for my bizarre ego project things, like podcasts.
That just continually just comes and sucks over into my face, so.
Yeah, but but if I was smoking a real Marlboro Red, would you prefer that?
No,
yeah,
not.
see?
I would prefer to have, like, no smoke, but that's okay. I don't mind those.
Really?
I was just joking around.
I need to get you addicted to cigarettes. Well, you did give me a bunch of
addicted to cigarettes, and now I'm not.
Yeah, you did used to smoke. I forgot about that, actually.
Quit smoking when I was 18, because then it wasn't cool anymore.
No, you're one of the few people. Most people start smoking when they're 12, and then they keep.
I was 12 when I started smoking.
You are one of those people too.
I am, yeah. And then I was like, I'm 18. This is gross. It doesn't taste good anymore.
And I love that. And oh man, there was like a whole thing I had. It's like discombobulated a bit, but there was just the amount of, like, I was just such a boring, sober, but not like proving a point. Like, I just didn't like the kids that smoked weed or whatever. Like, I didn't like the kids that drank in high school, and then I realized at 22 that booze is fucking awesome, but, like, I didn't know. So, of course, I never really started smoking because, it looks cool in a suit, but, like, when you're a dumbass, like, looking, like, standing outside of Walgreens looking for a Virginia Slim that's half smoked with some old lady's lipstick on it, it's gonna be like,
those were the best! Just go to the mall and just dig through the nasty
ashtrays. Yeah, dig in an ashtray. That's hip and hot. Like, yeah, cool. And then, like...
Dude, when you're 12 and desperate... It's super awesome to find a pack of, like, Salem Lights on the ground that, like, some old lady lost out of her purse. That was so great. I did
like that for a while. One of us worked at a famous gas station chain, and the other of us...
That's really why I smoked. It was just to get away from the cash register, be like, all right, bitches, I'm gonna go smoke.
Okay, so it was you, but yeah, the point is that we were stealing cartons of cigarettes out of the back and trading them for weed, and occasionally a little folded up a few points of coke, and reselling that for, like, more money. Like, that's long enough in the past where it doesn't matter. But yeah, cigarettes, people are like, cigarettes are like currency in prison, and I'm like, they're like currency everywhere, depending on who you're dealing with. And if you're dealing with people who are not long for prison.
At least they were into, like, the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, and this is an old tale, but yeah, oh shit, though, what was I gonna say? Like, something about cigarettes. Kids smoking cigarettes, everyone thinks they're cool. You used to smoke. Maybe smoking weed. Something.
Talking about your CBD smokes.
Yeah. No, but, okay. This was something I did want to discuss, and it will probably be in, like, the clickbait thing. So, what I wanted to talk... I gotta take the condom off because I really like this one. That's... that joke. I've had a few people be like, I really like you, just halfway through, and you can just take that off. I'm like, why was I wearing it in the first place then? I should leave. But, like, yeah, I know people are terrifying. Speaking of jail. But, okay. So, in Minnesota, like, as we all know, marijuana is federally legal in Canada. And it's not federally legal here. But yet, in more and more states, it's like it's been medically legal in Minnesota in some form or another for kind of a long time, like almost as long as it was recreationally legal, at least in Colorado, if not also Michigan. But now it's like Illinois. It's like it's closing in, and the legality of weed is one of the weirdest sort of things to pay attention to. Like, I'm not someone who loves weed. I wish it was it turns out, like, when people are like, weed does this and this and this for you, and I'm like, it doesn't. It just makes me paranoid and terrified. And like, for me, the answer to that question is like opium. I'm like, now that makes me feel great. But that's like, no one's fighting to legalize that. But I have never seen something be so piecemeal. Like that thing where they legalized some weird version of weed a while ago, like some dumb fuck old doddering Republican guy was just like, wait a second, was this farm bill? Did that make like at least a certain form of extraction of weed legal? Like all of a sudden, and like, yeah, it did. Like, oh shit, I didn't read all of that, or like whatever. Mm-hmm. It was very funny. And And it's like I'm so out of the game because, again, it just makes me think about death. Like, I have just, like, not a great experience with marijuana usually. I mean, it's like a light amount of it. And there was times when I could get, like, high off my ass and I had, like, so few responsibilities that I would never really, like, freak out or whatever. Or I don't know if that's what it is. It feels like that might be what it is. Like, when we would hang out with Elizabeth, right? Mm-hmm. And we would, like, just sit there, like, smoking weed like weed people would do. And I'd go upstairs from their basement into the bathroom and just sit there, like, thinking about how I'm going to die someday. That was one of those points when I started having to get off of it. And I'm like, wait, this used to be the funnest thing in the world. And all I had to worry about was, like, getting more of this stuff, and then everything would be great. And apparently that happens. As you age, you go, like, in and out of these phases where it, like, terrifies you. And I've been pretty solidly in a phase that terrifies me a bit about it. But the thing that I've been enjoying lately is, since it has been weirdly, kind of randomly here and there, legal, less legal, this version's legal, this state's okay, that state's not okay. Like, Joe Biden's pardoning people, but, like, none of them are actually in jail. I actually read, now I'm too drunk. I read about the exact, did you hear about that? Where he's like, oh, we're going to, like, start on jailing people.
Yeah,
but it's people that caught like a federal charge and then
for possession of marijuana.
Yeah, but there's actually very little of that. It's like all the red states are just going to be like, yeah, well, it's a state law.
Yeah,
and it's fucking bizarre, but it's something. No one's ever tried to do that, and I do want to remind all the fucking churlish butt munches out there that every time you're like, that Democrat didn't do enough, I'm voting Republican. It's like, okay, now abortion's illegal, idiot. Like, you want to roll the dice on that again? You're like, well, there's some student loans went away, and some people that went to jail for weed got let out. I'm just gonna say, fuck it, and then it's just like, cool. They brought back like hanging, like you're just, like, yeah, like, well, that would have happened anyway. Like, shut up with your liberal arts degree. Like, yeah. But so though. Necessity is the mother of invention. And thereby, weed being more legal in more places has allowed actual real science to be done, which is fun. And they found out that there's like, you've heard of Delta 8. Like, regular weed is Delta 9, I guess. Although there are ways to extract. Well, no, that is what it is, I think. But you can get Delta 8 out of a legal hemp plant through some bizarre process that we didn't know about before because we weren't able to study it on that level or whatever, which is something people need to remember. It's like, yeah, people fucking around with shit makes the wheel gets invented, sure, by a caveman. But, like, when you're really getting into deep advanced chemistry and stuff, like, not having to hide from the cops while you do it really truly does, and there's money thrown at it. Hamilton Morris will tell you that, like, oh, you really do learn so much about the real chemistry of this stuff in a way that's not this clandestine sort of hearsay, experimental, fucked up, weird thing or whatever. So because of that, and because of it's circumventing the legality, and also because it is legal in other places, those two things are sort of married to create these bizarre mutated hybrids of things. And one of them is called HHC. It's like THC, but it's HHC. It's a delta nothing. It's a, and I haven't tried this yet. I just went and bought this, legally. It's carbonized, apparently. The same process by which you turn vegetable oil into margarine is how you turn Delta 9 extract, which is the normal THC molecule, but weirdly and unnaturally extracted from a regular hemp plant rather than a, weed cannabis thing, or whatever, is how you get this. And the weird thing is it was originally synthesized by somebody before in like the 1920s, like pre the invention of LSD or whatever. Like it's not something someone came up with just now. Much like all the mRNA stuff where it's like, they rushed this. I'm like, they've been working on this forever.
Hemp-derived HHC isn't THC, but it offers the THC light experience. That
is what it says. And now, I'm going to try this on air because this is legal, by the way, so I can't get, demonetized. I make no money from this. We don't even have enough watch hours or fans. Subscribe, by the way, you should. But it's like Delta 8 in vape form I actually kind of like. Delta 8 in edible form, however, is an entirely different monster that I don't think has had enough discussion, really. And I think I've brought it up before, where, like, Delta 8, and the thing I was working at, it is a place that, makes functional glass art and sells Kratom and Delta 8 and stuff. So it's like the people that work there know a lot about this stuff. And I was talking about how, overdosing on Delta 8 is a soulless mushroom trip, which is terrifying. Because, like, the mushrooms guide you through the hell they put you through. Like, they do. Like, you look in the mirror and you become your own grandfather, you realize that, like, everything's a cycle and there's no such thing as death and whatever. But it's like when you take that much Delta 8, you have that same hallucination where you're just like, your face is rearranging in the mirror and no one's holding your hand. Like, it's fucking rough. And they were like, that is what that's like. I'm like, yeah, man. Like, no, I don't know. Which is also when you're not expecting it as hell. But so, I don't think you can get an HHC edible, so I'm not even going to, like, speak to that or whatever. You can get a vape of it. But what everyone says about this is that it is a version of THC that A, circumvents the law, which is fun. But B, it is a head high. Like, you don't get that, like, some people are like, well, how do you get paranoid from a body high? And it's like, when you feel like you're in a vice, it is, terrifying. But this is like a heady high, but it's a clear heady high, which is wild. But the thing is that, like, they talk about all this stuff. I was looking at Leafly's thing, as a matter of fact, earlier, and a few other things. And it is, the jury is a little out. It is a little bit like, well, yeah, but it affects everybody differently, and it's all anecdotal, and are there really enough people to make a claim about this, blah, 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 blah. So Alexis and I, and the same place we usually get our actual high quality, smokeless smoking, they're very picky about their CBD stuff or whatever. It's like, CBD is a little hit or miss, and every huckster sells it or whatever. They're weird about it, so, like, what you buy from them always works. They're not paying me. I'm just saying, if you're going to get it from anywhere, they're a great source because they are jack iron boot about it, and you want that with bizarre chemicals you're putting into your body. You don't want someone who's really willy-nilly. But they sell this, so I kind of trust it or whatever. And this is a purple, it's like the most in-the-couch indica version of HHC. But I'm going to try this, and we have about 20 minutes left now, a little more than 20 minutes. So we're going to see if this makes me go crazy.
Yeah, I really hope this doesn't turn into something where you just, like, are just like, shut the fuck up and nothing, because this is going to just turn into Wayne's World, where it's just Garth being me being Garth, and I'm just going to be sitting here like,
that if that happens, we're allowed to turn it off. Also, like, I did take a CBD gummy. I have been drinking alcohol, and both of those things famously nerf the effects of this shit when it's out of control.
I am the Garth to your Wayne, though.
Party on. Yeah. No, and I'm not going to sit here sucking this thing dry. I'm just going to take a hit off it for the first time. And we're going to see. It's like on Wonder Shows and when they burn that cockroach. Yeah.
Don't leave me.
I'm not leaving you. We just have Alexis be me. By the way, it'd be really funny if it was just you and Alexis. Like, we have to do John's podcast. He's like hiding in the fucking laundry room. Like, that would be hilarious.
Table.
Yeah, it tastes like a weedy vape. Yeah, I'm just going to do that. I inhaled it for a second because I don't know what it's going to do. But it might be great. Like, I'm just waiting for them to mutate. Look, what I want...
So it's fun.
Yeah, so it's not terrible. Well, no. But there are things that I know are fun. I'm like, you have two things that you could shoot for. To either manufacture some sort of weird THC molecule that mimics the effects of a benzodiazepine or mimics the effects of an opiate. It doesn't have to cure my back pain, like just the head effects of either of those two things, whatever. Like, can you put my brain there with some sort of version of THC or cannabis or something? Can you do that? Without the weird addictive, because benzodiazepines and opiates both come with like a lot of bullshit that you don't want to do regularly, but weed is a thing that generally speaking, you can have problems with it, but like it is less rough on your system. It's more psychologically addictive than physically addictive. It has no like weird degenerative effects on any of your shit. So, but since there's so many different weird versions of it, it's like, can you sort of mimic? I will take one or the fucking other. Although the first person that makes a molecule that goes like, this is what it's like when you cut a Percocet in half and cut Xanax in half, and then you just take both of those halves and you smoke that and you feel like that person is going to be a billionaire if the government doesn't kill them. And they will. But the thing is it's not going to be me. I know nothing about chemistry. All I know is what I want. Like, it's like art. I don't know art, but I know what I like. It's like, I'm like, oh, this version of this. Yeah, no, I don't want to experience half-baked. I want to be completely baked into some sort of weird Chinese opium den where no one has any problems and everyone has a top hat and all you're doing is also pairing it with a touch of absinthe. Because, those are the olden days. Mm-hmm. But yeah, speaking of a Chinese opium den, Britain kind of kneecapped China at a certain point in like, I think the late 1700s by introducing opium over there. And like, it literally was like a weird narco crime movie, but with like, sailboats and old timey guns and stuff, like not like, Breaking Bad and things. But yeah, that particular molecule and plant or whatever is incredibly destructive, but it is also, I hate to say, like, shit like that, I've never felt better. It's just like, you don't even need to like mix it with booze. You're just like, I am sailing steady into the sunset. This is great. Or whatever. But I don't do that because I'm like not stupid. So it's just like, yeah, I'm not trying to like ruin my whole stupid life. As stupid as it might be. Ooh, I feel a little something going down my back.
Spider?
I'm covered in bugs. Because it turns out that they have also legalized meth in vapable form. Flintstones chewable meth. No. Hard to chew with no teeth. But no, I felt just a little bit of a wave go down me. Like I took a big hit off that thing, which I hadn't. I took like a little mouth hit earlier just to make sure I didn't have to charge it. And I don't, because it's one of those disposable ones. I kind of gave it like a... I'm like, oh, it lit up and a little smoke came out. But that's not doing shit. Like, you can't mouth hit like a vape like it's a cigar. Like, nicotine will like leach into your mouth or whatever. Like, this won't do that. And I will admit, I got a little drunker than normal for this. I've actually been drinking a lot less lately, but I've been keeping it to the weekends. And it's entirely vanity. Like, I don't really care what anyone thinks of me except for the fact that I'm like, it was hard to lose weight if I'm just drinking Manhattans like 7 days a week. Like, there's a lot of calories in those. It's not great, and I'm getting older. So I'm keeping it to the weekends, which is fun because it makes it so that it hits me a lot harder when we do the podcast, which is wonderful. But what it also does is it helps me not fully panic from some sort of weed thing. The alcohol is the regulator of weed, at least historically. I'm old enough to know that that's the truth. Like, I don't have to be like, well, I think this will help. I'm like, yeah, I've been fucking with all this shit for like 23 years. I know. But, yes. All right, yeah, my brain's doing a thing.
Yeah?
No, it's good. This is interesting. I'm not leaving Garth alone. Like, I completely promise. And again, this is like late in that, like, we're at almost the 45-minute point. Like, everyone's checked out by now. And if anyone still cares, the idea of me sort of kind of trying to, like, explain what this bizarre new, I don't know, mutation. I can feel it in my back, though. I wonder if it does have a little bit of a painkiller thing to it. I mean, again, like,
For you, because I'm sure it's going to...
Everyone's different. No, I know.
So.
But cannabinoids are all different. Like, CBD really helps some people. It helps me, like, a little. And some people it helps none at all. So, I get that that's entirely dependent on who you are or whatever. But it's like, it is interesting. I feel that drug effect up and down my spine, almost how I do with Molly a little bit. Like that, like it kind of goes up and down your back. You kind of feel these weird body wave chill things. It's not that intense. It's not like that. And the last time I did Molly, I did way too much, I will say. It's been well over a year now. But I told someone it's like, yeah, I took like 3 points of like really pure, and it's like I would have cut that into thirds. Like, oh, whoops. But it was, I mean, yeah, it was like pulling the carpet out. I was like, oh my god, that was a ride. It was good though. It was connecting with my wife and feeling like weird feelings, and you know what was great? It all happened here and not at a rave. Now I have a question for Meredith. See the F6 key? You see the top corner there?
Uh-huh.
There's a thing on there.
There is.
Is that thing moving? Or am I crazy?
I don't think it's moving.
Above the F6 key?
Yeah.
This key right here.
I see it. I see the black dot.
Okay. It wasn't just over the corner.
Oh, it's moving. It's a bug.
It's a bug! I'm not hallucinating!
It could be. I mean, you can lift it up.
No, but okay. Hang on a second. I love how this is going exactly how you'd expect.
I'm kind of like blindish.
It is. No, it is like a little bug. Yeah, it has wings.
It is. Yeah,
What the hell is that?
it's just like a gnat.
No, we don't let gnats in this house. Get the fuck out of here. No. Look. Like, I thought it was like a piece of dirt, and I was watching it slide around the key, and I'm like, am I hallucinating?
Like, wow, that shit's good.
Was this worth the $30? Like, yeah, I think maybe. Like, one hit, and I'm like, ooh. So I took a big hit. Who the fuck gives a shit? Yeah. No, okay. I'm just really trying to gauge how I feel. Which has to be very boring. It's too bad. Let's see. What can I talk about to pass the time while I also, with my second brain, monitor my like weird feelings so I can give updates as I go. I guess that like, yesterday was really fun filming. So I've been working for Stone Arch Studios, which they own. Actually, I don't quite know how it works, but I'm pretty sure that like that's the main company, and then they own the Hideaway stores. And if you live in Minnesota, Hideaway has always been like the cool, like, you know, you can get glass pipes that are meant for, of course, tobacco or fun or just art. And then, but you can also buy, you can buy at this point like Kratom, Delta 8, Delta 9, like all the things, a CBD, actual tobacco, cigars, pipes, you know, just everything like that. And they've been like a mainstay of Minnesota for like a long time. When do you think they started? I could, of course, look or ask, but do you remember as another person who was like a weird punk rock hippie garbage person?
I never.
I mean, I
never
really
I never was into that sort of thing.
Well, I didn't have the money for like fancy glass pieces and shit like that. It's like I bought like an old metal pipe or something like back in the day. But they've really expanded, and I got like the fun part. Tavern and Grill. That is
Pizza.
not.
I was not specific enough because I don't.
Well, I did learn though the guy that has owned all the Hideaways and all the Everything Forever, Wally, who I've gotten to meet now. He also owns a restaurant in Dinkytown, and it's called Wally's, and that is that Wally, I guess. Which is kind of interesting. Like, I never knew that. But the Hideaway Pizza is not his, I don't think. I think that's like a disconnected. That's the only reason I brought that up, is there is food sort of connected to the business, but not really.
I'm just going to admit I'm really bad with the Googling today. I'm suffering from like major brain fog, and I don't know why. So. Well,
that's fine. I don't want you to Google things good. I want it to be a weird disaster that we can make fun of, because learning things the right way is not why we're here. And, you know, again, one of my favorite podcasts is Your Mom's House, and they have Nadav Google things, and they made an entire song. And I feel a kinship because I wrote a song for them once that they did play on their podcast, which is fun. And I've brought it up a million times, but someone else sent in a song. I should do this. I should make a functional song, not one that they just play at the end because it's funny. But someone wrote a song called Nadav is Googling. Mm-hmm. And it's just like this goofball little like happy techno song, and it just goes, Nadav is Googling, he's looking for shit. Nadav is Googling, I hope he finds it. Nadav is Googling, he's looking for you. Hurry up and find that shit, you fucking Jew. Nadav is Googling. Nadav is Googling. I didn't write it. I mean, whatever. And he is a J. It's fine. But he's also a horrible Googler. You could not Google worse than Nadav. But he's very famous. He's very famous for not being able to. He parlayed it almost into a career. Because everyone's like, they mentioned his name so much while yelling at him because he sucks at Googling. It's like a podcast guy to the point where he can sell t-shirts of it now. And my God, isn't that the dream?
Man, I'd love to do something where people make t-shirts out of me or something.
Maybe. No, being the sort of connected thing to my nonsense, like, I'm not saying that it's possible, but that weird, like, 1 out of 100 sort of like, oh, this got a bunch of listeners and now you have this amount of attention that you definitely don't want to deal with or whatever, that can be turned into t-shirt money. Like, just so you know, like, it's going to be scary at first. And then you're just kind of like, wait a minute, I could sell, like, Meredith the Death Doula t-shirts because everyone makes fun of it online. It's like, yes!
Personal business
or something, and you could become the world's most famous death doula because of the podcast, which is kind of what happens in our modern world, where, you know, if you have like a weird social media thing like a podcast or a big TikTok account or whatever like that, it's like any weird small potatoes weirdness you were involved in, like, could actually blow up past that, and then now you're like, oh well, yeah, but because of that, I was just going to be a regular death doula, and now I'm like the famous one that gives people advice on TikTok how to do it. It's like, how can I become a death doula?
Specifically because death doulaing is kind of like in its pioneering phase, they do recommend that you start a podcast or whatever and to just get the word out about it, which is funny. So, like,
you already have one.
I know, it's be interesting.
I think I'm discovering that I'm not getting probably a very realistic appraisal of this HHC thing because I'm like tour bus drunk, which
really? I don't seem like you're that fucked.
Well, I'm me. I mean, like, so it is like, oh, by the way, I did want to talk about this. You brought this up. I'm just going to shift directions completely. So
whatever at this point.
I know, but a bunch of people, no, just speaking of me being that drunk, a bunch of people went to go see KMFDM at the Caboose. Mm-hmm. And there's people that, like, I'm friends with that had mentioned that it was, like, kind of, like, really fucked up and bad as far as audience-wise. And there was a guy that, like, worked at the Caboose, and I don't know if it was off. You know, Cora mentioned this. But it was his off night or something. Or whatever. He was, like, pushing through people and, like, reaching around women's waists and grabbing their boobs and being all, like, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it got addressed, apparently, which is good. But, the reason that I bring that up is that I'm like, another guy, Jason Osborne, I'm friends with on Twitter. I'm sorry, Instagram. And he was there too, and he didn't really bring that up, but he was like, everyone was just in everybody's bubble, and they were just that drunk or whatever. He's like, I kind of stopped drinking, and it's like really annoying. And I'm like, I commented that it's weird. And you know what? There's a very personal story that I'll find a way to tell on this podcast, not tonight, but by removing all names about people who you thought it was their alcoholism, and it turns out they're just the worst person in the world anyway.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good story.
I'll figure that out. But, no, it gave me pause to think that, yeah, like, I'm shithouse drunk right now. And they're like, well, you're 42. But it's like, yeah, but I could, you know, occasionally I'd get a little wild when I was drunk and younger, but generally speaking, that's certain behavior that you do see from people where it's like, oh, they were drunk, so they ran around like sticking their fingers in everyone's mouths and like just going like, hey, you, fuck you, blah, blah, blah. Like that weird thing. And I think I'm piecing together this theory that common decency, or, you know, whatever you want to call it, is like flexing a muscle and standing on your tiptoes for a lot of people. Like, there's like, I'm trying not to, and then they're just like a little booze. Maybe too much, or maybe just a little, and they're like, oh, yeah, finally, fuck you, you're the N-word. And it's like, is that that's not only I'm not defending booze, but what I am saying is that, like, when I get really drunk, I'm just kind of like, well, darling, that's how it is.
Yeah, I gotta feel like it's part of your personal makeup that makes you do this shit.
Yes.
Like,
if my default setting is a charming, funny, reasonable guy. And, like, yeah, I like to get a little, like, wild and destructive. But usually it's at the behest, too, of people being like, yeah, climb up on that. John will do it. I'm like, yeah, I will. But it's not like, hey, I'm gonna punch that old lady, right? And everyone's like, don't do that. And like, no, you're stupid. I'm gonna do it. Like, yeah, there's so many people who their default setting is just them sitting there going like, I hate that I can't say racial slurs and touch women. I hate it. 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 Oh, okay, I'm at a concert. I hate it. I hate. Finally, like, it's just why? What is wrong with you? I hate you all so much. But I left a comment like that to some degree, or just being like, yeah, like, what the fuck is that? And no, it's just that everyone is a horrible, rotten piece of shit. And I don't know where I was going with this really, but it was you not realizing I was drunk. Well, because we run into so many people here and again and throughout history that are like, oh, usually when people are drunk, they just start taking their dick out and like hitting people. And I'm like, that's not really my default. Like, it's a little funny on like a cartoon or whatever, but it's not really like, I'm not just sitting there going like, sucks so bad that I can't take my dick out and hit people. And then I get drunk enough. I'm like, you know what? I'm going for it. Everyone's going to love this. Like, that's not normal. Like, everyone should be like me, where you can get extremely drunk and your stories just get too long. Like, that's all.
When's this guy going to shut up?
Yeah, never.
That, like, should be the worst of it.
Yeah, it should just be like, oh, he has a podcast because he's, okay, it's my fault for listening to it. All right, sorry. Like, whatever. And, no, actually, it was funny, too, like, at this thing yesterday, a lot of old friends showed up. Dom, formerly of Blue Felix, and formerly, as Alexis proclaimed, Dom a bitch. And he is. But we love him. And he listens to this, which is why, of course, Dom a bitch. But
I didn't say
Dom a bitch.
So no one likes Dom.
Oh, no one likes Dom. No, but people like Dom. But nevertheless, Dom a bitch. And E-Rock a bitch, too, of course. And also, E-Rock moved to Tennessee, and I am devoid of E-Rock, which is a big problem. And that's a whole other tour bus story. But I'm sure if Dom is listening to this, he's laughing at it, because he remembers when I was devoid of E-Rock, and it was a sad day. I had taken somebody's Ambien on the tour bus, and I was sleeping in E-Rock's bunk, and he's like, get out of my bunk. I'm like, you need to get into this bunk is what needs to happen. And he's like, you have a problem. He's like, my problem is I am devoid of E-Rock. Come here. It is how it is. But, yeah. No, but, oh shit, I derailed myself with my devoid of E-Rock story. I don't know where I was going. Where was I almost going with it? Dumb a bitch, well, who I love. No, but people listen to this, something. People know me, and
It's hard to say where you were going.
I don't know. Yeah, I went on a lot of tangents. Well, the point is that, like, oh, right. No, I actually remember. So Dom had some friends with him. This nice young emo couple, or whatever, I don't know. The dude had gauged ears, the girl had tattoos, so I don't know what to call anybody. They're so much younger than all of us here, including even Alexis. I don't know. But they were, like, listening to me talk all this shit about how that one time I ate, like, these, like, creepy Chinese meatballs at this festival, and then, like, also Jake gave me a Dilaudid, and I threw up a whole bunch, and one of our roadies, who is named Creature, whose real name is Walter, but he was this large, one of the largest men I've ever known.
I didn't know Walter was called Creature.
Yeah, the Creature.
Okay.
Yeah, Creature feature featuring
Walter.
Creature. Walter was like
I saw him like twice in my life. I liked him.
And that's so many times, like, you're blessed to see him once, and I've seen him so many times, I will die happy. But, yeah, he was an amazing train-hopping, hobo, maniac, lunatic guy. Like, I really can't overstate how wild this guy's life was. Like, him being a Blue Felix roadie was like me working in a cubicle. Like, it was like the boringest part of his existence. And I was like, and we got along great. But yeah, I was like throwing up from all this stuff that I did. I was like in the sun too much. I drank too much. I was dehydrated. Chinese meatballs, dilaudid, all bad. And he was trying to get me to throw up in his mouth. And he was like, feed me like a baby bird. And I was already out of throw up by then. I was just like, I've tried, Walter. He's like, I'm disappointed. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I was like, ugh, because he would have just done, like, he lived like that. So, but anyway, like, I was, Dom brought that up at this thing yesterday, and I was, like, telling this young couple about it, and they were like, oh, we know Walter. Like, really? His name, they said the same thing. Like, I didn't know his name was Creature. Oh, no, she said, the lady, she was like, oh, yeah, he told me that he's done being Creature and he's Walter now. And I'm like, oh, I hate that. Don't tell me that.
Yeah.
That's like learning that the good man who was Scode is dead and only Ryan Wallstrom is in his place. Like,
I totally forgot that dude's real name, but that's...
yeah, I didn't like that.
Now
That sucked.
That guy's just gone.
And I'm like, oh, I wanted to think forever that Creature was just like in like in a junkyard naked howling at the moon or whatever, but he's probably not doing that, and it's a bummer. But maybe he'll get back to it. But the point is, long story short, about me rambling drunk or whatever, was that like I actually apologized to them for a second. I'm like, oh my god, I just like cornered you guys and I'm telling you all this like gross, disgusting shit, and I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm just bored. Like, I've already filmed everything I'm going to film, but I'm here. I'm talking to people. I don't know. But, the thing that gave me hope is they were like, are you kidding? This is like the funniest shit we've ever heard. We're like bummed out that you might stop.
Wow.
Like, oh, so they just like are these people who are like probably like 18 years my junior. I would probably guess.
Did you tell them that you have a podcast?
No, well, Dom did. Because he's like, no, I listen to it and that's why I'm making fun of him, because I know that he does actually listen to this.
So here we are getting around to the point.
Yeah, that Dom listens to this podcast. And no, there's no point, but like that hopefully his friends will, because he'll be like, John was talking about you. He doesn't remember your names, but he remembers he was talking about a Creature asking him to throw up in his mouth and then being like sorry that he was wasting your time. And then you guys going like, oh yeah, but he should keep telling us stories. Or whatever. But that's the joy. That could be 2 more listeners, really. Mm-hmm. If they were like, oh, we want to listen to this, and it's like, well, you can just do that anytime you want. Like, I mean, they could probably come over here if they really wanted to hang out, but my point is that, like, if that's a lot of trouble or a schlep or whatever, they could just, like, go on the old internet, go to the Alchemical Cocktail Lounge and like and subscribe, or find the Reverend John Wheeler podcast on where all podcasts are, which is, I don't know, Apple and Spotify and shit. Mm-hmm. It's so hard to explain. I'm trying to figure out how high I am.
Yeah, I was going to say, how's that going?
I feel good.
Oh, wonderful.
I should... How do I describe this? Because it is going through a bit of a layer of booze and stuff, but I think that I do have, like, that warm 70s glow, kind of, like, across my face a little. I'm just kind of like, yeah, this is not, like, in that way that you wished weed was, where you're like, I just feel good and I'm not thinking about, like, what I'm going to do when my parents die eventually. Like, whatever. I would just get into those brain cycles of that, mostly from pot. And I like calling it pot because I'm old. Like, are you on the pot? Confucius say, men who stand on toilet bowl high on pot.
I love those.
Yeah.
Those are so wonderful.
And probably racist. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
exactly.
Confucius was also, like, one of the most sexist, awful people. Or was he? All he did was exist in the 1400s, which he could have been the most progressive guy there ever was back then.
Yeah.
You hold that up to now. Because, like, if you were like, Abraham Lincoln said some shit. Like, if you compare him to, like, someone going for their PhD in racial studies, like, right now. Like Abraham Lincoln was like, whoa, but I think he was doing his best. I don't know. Or he was worse than Hitler. I can't say. I'm not a historian. I'm not even someone that understands history. I'm certainly no Abraham Lincoln because he was a lawyer. And I'm learning more and more that people who are successful in politics aren't weirdos that used to be in bands who just get involved in their neighborhood associations and think they can maybe turn that into like some kind of giant thing that they're in charge of. It's like, no. That's just a bunch of weirdos who don't get anything done. And then anyone that becomes a senator is like someone with like multiple law degrees and shit. And you're like, oh yeah, right. Well, that's just the paper ceiling man. Like, just I need a bachelor's degree to be like a graphic designer, and I need to be like a lawyer to like, make up new laws. That's bullshit. I mean, I would just love to live in a world where you could just parlay a little bit of celebrity, you know what I mean? And a little bit of like maybe real estate business, the stuff you pick up along the way, into a presidency. Like, is that so impossible? I gotta turn that into a joke. And you know what that means? I'm quitting while I'm ahead. Go fuck yourself.
The Reverend John Wheeler podcast takes zero responsibility for the words, actions, or ideas of its host, guests, or listeners. Though the people on the screen may at times be speaking directly to you, and may occasionally give you direct calls to action, neither Reverend John nor the Alchemical Cocktail Lounge are under any moral or legal obligation to answer for the potentially disastrous repercussions that may arise if you are stupid enough to actually follow the orders of a raving lunatic. Think for yourself and do whatever you want, because you're on your own. If anyone ever tries to sue this podcast, black SUVs will converge on your location in the darkness of night and you will never be seen again. Remember to like and subscribe.